Now, The Hunt Palmer Show.
Yes! I feel like I've been waiting for this my entire life.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Jolly good fun. Jolly good.
Locking down the middle of the day.
America's favorite daytime fun show.
Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio. This is Hunt Palmer.
Welcome in. Hunt Palmer coming to you from the Mercedes-Benz Baton Rouge studio downtown in the capital city on this Wednesday. About half the work week in the rearview mirror. Appreciate you hanging out with us on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Got Jacob Beck and Cassie Spazzali back there on the ones and twos. And we're off and running here on this Wednesday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show. JD PicKell with us in 15 minutes talking college football from a national perspective. It's What If Wednesday. We'll get to some of that. LSU's defensive players chatted with us yesterday, and revenge was on the mind. It was actually said multiple times. Now, we'll see if they can make that stand up on Saturday night, but there were certainly some interesting things said by Sai'vion Jones and Greg Penn that we'll get to in hour number one. In hour number two, we'll kick it off with my favorite Tiger Stadium memories. I did not realize that I just missed my radar, that there's a big celebration of 100 years of Tiger Stadium specifically for this game. I knew that they were doing a season-long celebration of 100 years in Tiger Stadium. I did not know that this game specifically had a little bit more importance, so we'll get into a little bit of that. At the top of hour two, I'll welcome your favorite memories from Tiger Stadium as well. SEC Power Rankings are an hour and a half from right now. I've got them right here. I don't love them. I don't love them. I've loved them for a month and a half. I don't love them.
Why not?
There are two I already think are wrong, and I just did them an hour ago. So how could I do something and then an hour later be like, well, that's probably not right?
Well, here's the thing, Hunt. They can't be wrong because they're your power rankings. There's no right
But I'm
power
trying
ranking.
to have them perfect. That's the idea.
Okay.
The idea here is that I'm such an expert, such an incredible football mind that I would perfectly rank the SEC teams every single week. That's the plan.
I understand that, but you have to understand that sometimes teams are just going to surprise you, Hunt.
I'm an expert. I shouldn't be surprised.
Okay.
The rankings are terrible. We'll get to them in an hour and a half from right now. When we came off the air yesterday, within 40 minutes or so, news was announced that Derek Carr would likely miss some time. You saw the NFL Network response from Mike Carafolo and from Rappaport, and they said, look, he's got an oblique, and it looks like Derek Carr is going to miss multiple games. There was a caveat in that report that said, look, they play on Sunday, and we don't think he's going to play then. And then they got to turn around and play on Thursday night. So they've got 2 games in a matter of 9 days here. So the inference was he's probably not going to play in either one of those games. And so that brings a whole different conversation to light here. Because if you'll recall, like I said 2 weeks ago, after looking at what the situation was on Atlanta's offensive line and looking at what the situation was with Philadelphia's wide receiving core and looking at the situation that was in Kansas City with their pass catchers, and if you just look at New Orleans' injuries, you would go, well, this is really bad. But then you look at all the teams they play, and that's really bad too. Atlanta's missing 2 of their top offensive linemen, and they beat you. Philly doesn't have Devontae Smith or A.J. Brown or their right tackle Lane Johnson, and they beat you. And Kansas City doesn't have Hollywood Brown and doesn't have Isaiah Pacheco, and then didn't have their next best pass catcher that they wanted to get the football to, and it's basically just the Mahomes and Kelsey show with whoever else they can get to show up, and they beat you. And the Saints haven't responded to injuries, so I was like, I'm not going to talk much about injuries because everybody's got them, and it just sounds like a pitiful excuse. Except, and then I threw a caveat right in the back of it, if Derek Carr gets hurt. Because not that Derek Carr is playing at an all-pro level, not that Derek Carr is playing at a Pro Bowl level, but the drop-off from Derek Carr to your backup quarterbacks is significant. You're going from an 11-year veteran in the National Football League who routinely throws for 3,500 yards, say what you will about them, to a couple of guys that hadn't played squat. You're talking about a 4th-round pick from last year, a 5th-round pick from this year. These are camp arms that have played a bunch of preseason ball. That's a big, big difference from Derek Carr. So you're at a crossroads here as a franchise because I don't know that you can recover from this. if you can't beat Tampa with the backup quarterback, you fall even further behind in the division. And then Denver at home is a game you probably ought to win. Now, I realize all these probablys don't carry a lot of weight because you probably weren't supposed to beat Dallas. Like, it's a week-to-week league. There have been upsets every week. Everyone's survivor pool is just about shot at this point in October. But you lose these two games with the backup quarterback, which is a real possibility. You're looking at a season that's on the brink, and if the season's on the brink, then the head coach is likely on the brink. I mean, there's a lot to unpack here. I think it's reasonable to expect, with Derek Carr in the lineup and some guys returning to health, that you have a good chance to win both of those games on your home field. We know that it's difficult on a short week for Denver to fly in with no practice time, basically, and play on the road on a Thursday. You could have won both of those games realistically. I'm not saying you would have, but you could have. Now, you're probably not. And that's going to make a real interesting decision moving forward, because you had to try to keep your head above water early before things got late and the schedule lightened up. And right now, you're on the precipice of not keeping your head above water. So the question becomes, who do you play? Who's the option? And there are a lot of different schools of thought for me, the analyst, for you, the fan, and the listener. There's multiple schools of thought. But in my estimation, there's only one school of thought in the Saints building. Who gives us a chance to beat Tampa? And that's the right way to go about it. It's not the fun way to go about it, which we will. Ross Jackson wrote a column today saying that Spencer Rattler should get the call. But I think it stands to reason that Jake Haener has got a little bit more trust operating the offense down to down, which is why he was asked to go in there on Monday night. Now, I fully understand that being asked to step into Derek Carr's game plan in Kansas City on the road against Mahomes, trailing, is a far different situation than having the game plan tailored to you over the course of an entire practice week and then going out there on your home field. Those are very different situations. So I would not be shocked if that report from Mike Garafolo was correct and that Spencer Rattler was the lean this week. But I think, to me, I'm going to need to see that to believe it. I'm not ruling it out. Far from it. It's a distinct possibility. Mike Garafolo knows far more people to talk to than I do. I'm just reading tea leaves from the outside. It's a conservative organization that always leans on the side of continuity, and Haener feels like more continuity with Derek Carr than Rattler does. And that's what I think they'll do, but that's with no information. It's just based on that rationale that I'm giving you. As far as Rattler goes, that's the enticing thing for the fans to talk about and for the media to chew on, because the upside is greater. Spencer Rattler was a 5-star recruit, #1 quarterback in the country, played at Oklahoma, then went into the SEC, won some big games in the Southeastern Conference. He's got real talent. And Jake Haener was an unheralded recruit who played at little old Fresno State and all of a sudden showed up in the 4th round and nobody in New Orleans had ever heard of him. And now he's been in the organization for a year and a half and, he looks like a backup. And the fun thing to do, because there's low morale in Saints land right now, is to think, well, what if Rattler played and he was awesome? And then he took over for Carr, and then he was our new quarterback, and we didn't have to deal with Derek Carr anymore. Like, that's what the fans want to say.
It's just it's always so funny that no matter what level or anything regarding that, the backup quarterback is just always the fan favorite. Like, he can't do
never
wrong.
Makes a mistake. He's never made a mistake.
Exactly.
The starters always made mistakes.
Yeah.
The backup never made mistakes.
Yeah.
And that'll be the case here. Everybody, and the odds that Spencer Rattler comes in and lights it up and becomes the starting quarterback and the Saints make the playoffs and he's the quarterback for the next 8 years, the odds of that are beyond minute. They're not zero, but they're beyond minute. But it's clinging for hope in a fan base that had all the hope 3 weeks ago and has very little of it now, because you feel like you're right back where we were in August, where you don't really like the quarterback and you don't really like the coach, And until those two guys are gone, you feel like you're kind of treading water and going nowhere. And this is the only hope that you had. And I'm okay with fans having hope. That's perfectly fine. And trust me, if Spencer Rattler comes out there and slings it around in the first half against Tampa and you get up to a 17-3 lead, that'll be fun. That will be fun. And he's got the physical tools to go out there and let it rip and throw for some yards. But it's a little bit unlikely. I'm just going to tap the brakes a little bit early. I will completely jump on board with the fact that it's an interesting storyline because hope's involved. But I will also suggest he's probably just a backup quarterback who's not nearly as good as the first guy, and you're probably in some trouble. Like, that's unfortunately the bucket of cold water that I end up tossing on this. It brings me no joy to do that, no. But I'm not just going to sit up here and completely fabricate my feelings on the situation because that's more fun for everybody involved. I can't. I'm just not going to do it. I didn't even think about this, but I saw Nick Underhill tweeted, the Saints have now had a quarterback get injured 6 years in a row. Yeah, I did know that.
The 2018 with Drew Brees.
And Peyton's teams were able to keep it afloat with Taysom and Teddy. And obviously Jameis got hurt, and they threw Dalton in there, and he was what and what.
Trevor Siemian.
I mean, goodness gracious. As I always say, Ian Book got his go there within the COVID season. I was in Women's Hospital in Baton Rouge with a 20-hour-old baby. It's not good, generally speaking, when the backup goes in there, unless the backup is Joe Flacco or Andy Dalton or Ryan Tannehill or one of those guys who can go out there and make it happen to an extent. There's a ceiling on it, but they may be better than the young pup you're trying to bring along. This is the opposite. You've got the proven commodity that can go out there and function, and now you're just going completely into wild card territory, and we'll see what in fact does happen. The Saints need to find a way to win one of these games. And it just feels like a tall order with a quarterback out there with no experience in the National Football League. But we'll see. Derek Carr's out. What will the Saints do? My guess is we'll probably find out on Sunday. I don't think the Saints are going to announce a starting quarterback until they absolutely have to on game day. So we'll see. Much more on that to come as we talk some Saints here on the Hunt Palmer Show. We'll punch time out, and then we'll come back with J.D. PicKell of On3 Sports talking college football right here on the Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
One Bath and Closets. OneBathAndClosets.com is the website. David Duvall and his team, 30-plus years of redesigning and remodeling bathrooms and closets. Safety is a big, big deal in the bathroom. I talk about this a couple times a week with you because it's important. If you've got an aging loved one who may be in a bit of a hazardous situation in the bathroom, let David Duvall and his team come in there and help out with that. They can put handrails near the toilet, shower, tub areas. It could be a little bit hazardous. They can put a walk-in tub for convenience and safety. They can do a bench in the shower to make things a little bit less hazardous there. It could make all the difference. But if you don't make the call and have that consultation, you'll never know. And if you think, well, I'd like to do that, but I don't know if I can pay for that right now. Well, they've got financing options. 0% for 18 months if you qualify. So make the phone call and see. That's not going to hurt you at all. That free consultation can start right out there on the website, onebathandclosets.com. You can also see pictures of their fantastic work, see the reviews from their satisfied customers. It's One Bath and Closets. Check them out online, onebathandclosets.com.
Welcome back to the Hunt Palmer Show. Here's your host, Hunt, the uniform czar, Palmer. Which uniform do you hate now?
The Padres generally look terrible. Dodgers look fantastic. Obviously, the Yankees look great. I don't mind the Tigers uniforms. Phillies and Mets generally look good.
Why don't you like the Padres?
I don't like the color, and I don't like the dark gray pants.
Yeah, the dark gray pants aren't great.
Everyone's gray should look the same. You don't jazz up the gray. It's gray.
Yeah.
And plus, it's just hard to do a lot with brown and yellow.
Not easy.
I mean, they had great. The navy and orange was great in the Tony Gwynn era.
I like
they jacked it up.
Yeah, I like the brown with the yellow lettering on the jersey. That one's not too bad.
Yeah, as long as you wear white pants.
Yeah, you gotta wear white pants with it.
Yeah. This has been Uniform Talk here on this Wednesday. Always Wednesdays at 1:15. We go out to the Jim's Firearms Hotline, chat with our guy J.D. PicKell, host of the Hard Count on On3. Subscribe up to On3's YouTube channel and get your college football content each and every day. And we are deep in the middle of it here. J.D., how we doing?
Doing great, man. Doing great. We got a tremendous Saturday slate here. This is one of those Saturday slates where it's kind of one of the, you don't really want to probably bring people in that don't love college football to sit down and watch with you. But if you wanted to get somebody bought in that was on the fence, this is one of those Saturdays. So I'm fired up, man. It's gonna be great.
I mean, we said last Saturday was a terrible slate, and look what we got. So I thought it's hard to make that proclamation before you actually see the product on the field. I mean, what do you make of Vanderbilt beating Alabama? Is it a big deal? Is it just a crazy 3 hours? What do we make out of it?
Oh, it's a huge deal. It's a huge deal. It was a crazy 3 hours. I mean, they threw goalposts in the Cumberland River, which is not like a short walk away from where the stadium is out here in Nashville. So it's a massive deal. I don't know that it's necessarily the sky is falling like folks maybe would like us to assume it is from the Alabama side. I think Alabama got beat. I know they got beat. I think Alabama probably didn't take it as seriously as they needed to, clearly. But I also think like Alabama has national championship level chops, and I think we saw that against Georgia. I think we've seen that multiple times throughout the course of this season. When they hit the gas, they're able to roll. Defensively, I think Joel Klatt put it perfectly this week. Like they're going to probably have to compensate for what they don't have defensively with what they have offensively. I think the scheme was way too vanilla. I think they did not come to play against Vanderbilt from a preparation standpoint. I think they thought they could just roll the ball out there and have their guys be better, and it wasn't the case. I'll also say this: I think Vanderbilt's a lot better than some folks would like to lead us to believe. I think the way they've attacked the portal and got 20 transfers and got essentially like Johnny Manziel Nashville version and Diego Pavia. I think they're a good little football team.
Alabama 67 points allowed in the last 6 quarters. I get it. Georgia's got some pretty good players, and you were mentioning the issues they had against Vanderbilt, who just kind of ran it all over them. What are the issues that Alabama has on defense?
So Brooks Austin has a full breakdown on his YouTube channel. He did a great job kind of giving the diagnosis. The synopsis there is essentially they tried to play a vanilla style of defense that Vanderbilt said, cool, we have football players, too, that are on scholarship making NIL dollars. We're going to be just fine and roll with those guys. So essentially a lot of man coverage. They were far too simplistic is the way that it sounded, and then far too sloppy from an execution perspective. So all that's to say, I think they have to mix it up some more. I mean, I can't get out of my mind, too, the way they had Carson Beck dead to rights the first half against Georgia. Like, that's a quarterback who's the epitome of consistent and cautious with the football. Like, he had never had a game where he threw more than one interception, and he threw 3 against Alabama. So I think it's there. They just think they got to load the clip every single week.
Let's stay in the SEC. Texas A&M 41, Missouri 10. Did you learn more about the Aggies or the Tigers?
I think we learn more about the Aggies. I mean, we've talked about this a little bit in Hunt throughout the course of this season. I've never really fully been on the Missouri train. I never trusted what they lost. But I think for Texas A&M, I wasn't so sure that Marcel Reed wasn't the better option at quarterback. I went so far as to say if he wasn't playing for them in this game, I wasn't sure about A&M's chances. It doesn't matter who's playing quarterback when you run for 200 yards and hold the opposition to 60 or whatever it was, less than 70. So I think they are the benefit for A&M now is they are not a quarterback dependent roster, and they've got a path here to where if they're able to split LSU and Texas, they're going to be right there in the mix for the college football playoff themselves at 10-2.
No question about that. A team that I think a lot of people thought would be in the college football playoff as of 5 days ago was Tennessee. That offense 2 years ago was an absolute freight train, and I get that you didn't have a great quarterback in Joe Milton last year, but now with Nico under center, not a great offensive effort against Oklahoma and a bad one against Arkansas. What do we make of that?
I think for Tennessee, I'm curious to see how they respond against a very gettable Florida team, because it feels a little bit like Nico's just not cutting it loose, like he's not just letting it rip back there. And it's great to be able to run the football, and Tennessee is built on running the football. I think ultimately they'll be able to run the football well enough to beat Florida, but the Josh Heupel offense is such a setup kind of offense to where they'll throw it in the intermediate game, they'll run the football, they'll make you overcommit, and then once they give you the matchup they want on the perimeter, the quarterback's got to pull the trigger and be able to hit that deep play downfield. So seems like Nico is not yet comfortable pulling the trigger, not an end-all, be-all to where, you write off Tennessee the rest of the year. But, if they don't get that fixed, they'll get beat again. And it won't just be by a Bama and a Georgia. It'll be somebody else along the way that'll sneak up and get them.
All right, before we get to this coming weekend, a couple teams that would have been way off the radar 3-4 weeks ago. SMU is now 5-1 and 2-0 in the ACC after beating Louisville on the road. Indiana goes to Northwestern and wins, which is not anything too significant, but they're 6-0 and their schedule is relatively lighter. Either of those two significant playoff threats?
I would say Indiana could be more of a playoff threat just because of them coming from the Big Ten. Here's a crazy scenario for you. Let's say Indiana ends up playing in the Big Ten championship in Lucas Oil. You have to imagine every Hoosier alum within, a 100, 200-mile radius makes the trip for that one. So I know Indiana hasn't played anybody just yet, so I'm curious to see how they look going forward here. The schedule isn't too difficult. I think we both talked on that or alluded to that a little bit. I'm not so sure that SMU won't turn back into a pumpkin. I know that they have Rhett Lashley running the show out there, and they're going to be an offensive show every given week, but I'm not so sure that someone won't get them along the way as well.
All right, let's move forward into this coming week. So I want to start in the Big 12. Kansas State goes to Colorado. Kansas State's a 4.5-point favorite in that game. Buffs are 2-0 in the Big 12. Who you like?
I got Colorado Twitter just all over my mentions here. Every single time we pick them or pick against them, they're throwing it up on the timeline and getting after us. So I think honestly, I could be convinced to take Colorado here with it being at home. Kansas State's secondary has had major issues. They almost got beat by Tulane because the quarterback over there went for almost 3.5 bills. They beat Oklahoma State by 20, and Allen Bowman went for 360. I think that Avery Johnson is just so dynamic. I think Kansas State is ultimately more complete. I have Kansas State winning. I think it's close, though. I think Colorado covers.
We shall see. Red River rivalry, SEC style, Texas and Oklahoma. The Sooners have not been good on offense, and Texas didn't really miss a beat with Arch in there for Quinn, but Quinn Ewers will be back in that one. Longhorns are a 15-point choice. What you think?
I don't know if I touch the spread here, Hunt. This spread just screams weird things happening. Oklahoma historically has actually had their way in this rivalry as of late. I'll take Texas. I think that I don't know if I think they cover, but I do think they win the football game. Ewers getting back. A little bit curious how he looks from a rush standpoint, because if there's a defense you want to have your first start back against, I don't think it's Oklahoma.
Do you think Texas is the best team in the country?
Right now, I'd say they're probably the most complete team in the country. I think Ohio State, seeing them against Iowa, it felt like we saw them rev the engine just a little bit. It is gross, the skill talent they have, and then how fast that defense is sideline to sideline. I know we're probably going to touch on Ohio State, Oregon, but I think Ohio State after this weekend may have a case to be number one. Well,
let's do it now. What do you think about that game out in Eugene?
I think Ohio State wins. I think Ohio State covers. I've been massively high on Oregon. For the better part of the entire offseason, they gave you some, concern the first couple of games, but I really can't get over the idea that I think they've saved a lot for this game. And I think we're going to see coming out of this one just how impactful Chip Kelly is. They're top 5 in the country right now in terms of yards per carry. I think they'll mix it up even more on the ground. And again, the team speed of that defense. Oregon is so dynamic at getting the football out on the perimeter in the quick game and letting their guys just kind of work in space with Dylan Gabriel. I think the number they want to get the ball out is 2.5 seconds. They kept saying on that broadcast. I don't think they're able to have success doing that because you have multiple NFL players in the secondary for Ohio State. So I think Ohio State pounds the rock. I think Will Howard makes enough plays with his feet as well. And I think the Buckeyes not just win but cover in Eugene.
Penn State, we don't talk about them a lot. They've crept up to number 4 in the country, and I don't think anybody really believes in them because they don't usually win the games that are tough. Now, I don't know how tough this is because USC hasn't looked great the last couple of weeks, but they're headed out to the Coliseum. They're 5.5-point favorites flying all the way across the country. Do you think USC's got a chance in that one?
It's hilarious that you bring up that narrative in a sense. I'm in the Chipotle parking lot before lunch right now. And as I'm pulling up, I'm talking to a Penn State fan, and he says, "Man, we got to get that narrative. We have to win a big game here. We have to find a way to get that done." And I think that's exactly the talking point that we're all thinking around Penn State. And then I would take it a step further. I think Penn State's a bully in the Big Ten. anytime you line up your offensive lineman at slot receiver and motion him in and just take the soul of a defensive lineman, like that to me is bully kind of material. Like, go be the bully on the road against a West Coast team. I know the narrative over the course of the last year and a half to 2 years has been, Lincoln Riley's a soft West Coast outfit out there. Like, go be the bully. Go take what you perceive to be yours in the Coliseum. So I think Penn State wins. I think Penn State covers, and I think they do it behind a ferocious rushing attack.
Let's talk about the home game. Ole Miss comes to Baton Rouge. Rebels a 3.5-point favorite. Some injury concerns with Trey Harris that we're monitoring as well. So what do you think about Ole Miss and LSU Saturday night in Death Valley?
I'm a little bit nervous about LSU here. And Hunt, correct me where I'm wrong here. Get me to see the light. I'm a little bit nervous because of the South Carolina game and how that went. I'm a little bit nervous because of the UCLA game being tied at half. And all that's to say, LSU still found a way to win those football games. I'm not so sure that the Ole Miss loss to Kentucky doesn't kind of kick some smelling salts in their face and get them back right. I think it's close, but I do think Ole Miss finds a way to win on Saturday night.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking to the players yesterday, and all the defensive guys are saying the right things. They're talking about revenge and how they've got to be a lot better. And this is the litmus test. Like, you brought in a whole new staff, and we're going to revamp this entire defense. And it's probably got to start with recruiting. But this is your first, huge test here at home. You held USC to 13 points halfway through the fourth quarter, and then you gave up 2 touchdown drives to lose the game. And the defense was not great the next 3 weeks. But we think they're making strides. This will be the deal. If they go out there and they hold them to 28 and they win the game 31-28, you can feel like LSU's got a chance to go make the playoff. If they give up 48 and they lose 48-24, then you're not even close. That's going to be we'll learn on Saturday night.
Yeah, I mean, it really is going to be such a fascinating litmus test, like you mentioned, when it comes to LSU. Because, I mean, it's a playoff game. Like, for both sides, this is a playoff game. And I understand that 2 losses, you still have a chance to make the college football playoff if you're Ole Miss. But, if you go into Baton Rouge and you get your stuff just kicked in, that's probably going to be a pretty clear resume ruiner for the college football playoff. And like you said, if you're LSU, if you go beat Ole Miss in that sense, that's going to obviously do a lot in the eyes of what I would have to believe is going to be the committee and deciding that large bid.
We'll see. Should be a crazy environment in there. 6:30 on Saturday night on ABC. We'll be watching it. We'll talk to you next week, JD. Thanks, man.
You're the man. Go Tigers.
On Twitter at JD PicKell. You can find him on On3's YouTube channel with your college football content. Subscribe up and give him a look each and every day. We appreciate JD for giving us some time today on this Wednesday. We'll come back with some What If Wednesday next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Make LeBear's Baton Rouge your game day headquarters this season. They've got the biggest screens around, and now you can dine and bet at ESPN Bet inside LeBear's. Always tell you, download the Cover 5 app. I've got a league. You can enter with the code LABRSEC24. Again, that's LABRSEC24 when you download the Cover 5 app. Right now, I'm in 30th out of 112. But Week 7's coming up, and you can jump in right now and win weekly prizes. And if you're really, really good, you can catch up and win season-long prizes as well. There are 112 folks signed up, so jump in with LABRSEC24. Pick those 5 SEC games and have some fun with us each and every Wednesday. If you're not a member, get the Penn Play app today. LeBear's Baton Rouge, your live sports headquarters. Must be 21 years or older. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-589-9966 for help.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
I want to remind you to download the 104.5 ESPN app on your phone. I know most of you probably have that. But if you have your notifications disabled, go ahead and enable them. We'll promise you we're not going to spam you with LouisianaSports.net content. We just put breaking news on there. So when we get an injury update like Derek Carr yesterday, we post a story and the notification goes right out, and you can get that right to your smartphone. Again, it's not even close to twice a week. It's just whenever there's breaking news, we'll hit you with that push notification. And if you want that information, Got LSU injury updates. We had a Jakeem Stewart reclassifying if LSU gets a commitment or there's something significant that we think you'd like to know about over at LouisianaSports.net. We'll hit you with that push notification on the 104.5 ESPN app. So if you've got the app, enable your notifications. If you don't have the app, download it and then enable your notifications. We'll get some sound from LSU football's defensive players coming up at the end of this hour, so in about 10 minutes from right now. But it's time for some What If Wednesday.
Time, space, reality. It's more than a linear path. Where a single choice can branch out into infinite realities. Follow me and ponder the question. What if?
All right, first one here. What if Trey Harris does not play for Ole Miss?
I mean, it's obviously a big deal. It just is. Like I said this yesterday, and it doesn't become any less true today. I don't think I've ever seen an offense that is skewed so heavily towards one pass catcher like this Ole Miss one is. And I think it's a credit to Trey Harris, and it's a credit to Lane Kiffin and Charlie Weiss Jr. that everyone knows that's where Jackson Dart wants to throw it, and he's still rolling up obscene yardage totals. I mean, he could be looking at a, 1,800, 2,000 yard season at this pace. I mean, he missed a half against South Carolina, and he's still way up over 800 yards receiving in early October. So it's a big deal. I don't know that it's like they can't throw the ball without Trey Harris. They've got some guys that can run around, and LSU's secondary hasn't really proven that it can cover nickels, much less SEC guys that are on one of the better offenses in the conference. So I don't know how big a deal it is, but it feels significant, and it feels like it will take Ole Miss a little bit out of their comfort zone and their go-to deal. I mean, you've got to know that Lane Kiffin's got some plays and that Jackson Dart certainly has some situations where he knows where Trey Harris is going to be and he wants to get him the ball. When you take that away as even a possibility, I think that does affect you. So I guess that'll be one of the storylines on Saturday if he doesn't play. Again, the folks in Oxford that cover the team feel like it's unlikely he's able to go anything resembling 100%. We're not going to know until Saturday because Lane Kiffin, to his core, despises the injury report thing. It's why he's made a complete farce out of it and has put half his team on the injury report to protest the fact that he has to do it. So we're not going to know. Like Sam Pittman's the opposite. He pretty much just tells you everything you need to know. It's kind of like Paul Maneri in that way. Kiffin's not going to do that, so we won't find out until Saturday, but it feels pretty big. Yeah,
I agree. Next one here. What if the Dodgers lose to the Padres today?
Then they're out, and they are right now in the same way the Braves were in the 90s, like a evidence of how hard it is to win the whole thing. The only World Series they have is the COVID year, which was a joke. And it counted then because we were just desperate to do anything that mattered, but that wasn't real life. That was playing a bunch of games in Texas in front of neutral crowds.
And it was a third of the
I mean, if you look at the environment in San Diego last night and you want to compare that to playing at Globe Life in front of 15,000 people who drove in from Plano that don't care who wins, like that's not nearly the same situation. But they're the best team in baseball and they spend the most money every year and they never win. And the Braves were the best team and they never won. They won one time. And so that's just one of the deals. Like, we're lucky here in Baton Rouge that most of the people that are listening here have been around for 6, 5 baseball championships, maybe 7, and then you've been around for 3 football championships. Like, that's incredible stuff that doesn't happen very often, and we may take it for granted at times, but I try to never to take for granted winning the whole thing, whether it was the Cubs in 16 or the baseball championships that I've been able to see or the football either. Like, it's so hard to climb that entire mountain at any level of what you're trying to do, and the Dodgers are a testament to that. If they can't beat the Padres today, that's another year that goes by where you've got Freddie Freeman in his prime, and you've got Mookie Betts in his prime, and you've got Ohtani in his prime, and obviously Kershaw's beyond that and was hurt this year, but they've got excellent arms as well, and they had Kenley Jansen forever that was such a great closer, and like, it's just hard to win, and I think that's important to sometimes step back and realize that it's a bear.
It is. All right, next one. What if Spencer Rattler lights it up for the next 2 weeks?
That'd be great.
It would be.
He's not going to keep the job if he does that.
No, I don't think so.
That's going to be Derek Carr's immediately when he's going to return. No matter who the backup is, he's just a placeholder. We're not going to see a Tom Brady, Nick Foles type situation here. I don't believe. The Saints are committed to Derek Carr. They believe in Derek Carr, and he's going to get that job back when he's physically able to play. But if Rattler does light it up the next 2 weeks, which is the point of this contest and conversation, the fans are going to go nuts. And if Rattler lights it up the next 2 weeks, and when they come back, they got to go to L.A. first. When they come back home and Carr throws 2 picks in the first half and they punt the third time, it's going to be hellacious in that place.
Absolutely.
So that's where this franchise is. The fan base is sick and tired of being sick and tired, and they want new life, and this is that door cracking open, as unlikely as it probably is. So we'll see.
All right, we got some from Twitter, and also the chat has a few here. But the first one is, what if Vandy makes it to Atlanta? Will Hunt rank them higher than 15th in his power rankings?
Okay. Vandy made it to Atlanta. They played Georgia State, and they lost. So they've already been to Atlanta. That'll be their only trip to Atlanta.
Okay.
They lost to Missouri. Okay. And so we got power rankings coming up in 45 minutes. So we'll see. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But Vandy's already made their only trip of the year to Atlanta, and that'll be good enough.
All right, next one here from Nookie in the chat. What if the Palmers have more kids than the Hesters?
I mean, I'm going to have to move in with my parents at that point because we're going to have to sell the house. I can't. The dollars and cents don't work.
They don't
work. 5
work.
kids in my like that. All I have to do is take the one daycare expense that I have and multiply that by 5. We got real problems here. So one time, this is just completely off on a tangent here, but one time there was a member of the clergy in the Catholic Church who came up to me and talking about children. My wife was there, and he was like, "Yeah, I mean, you should just have a ton of kids."
That's Catholic. That's Catholics, man.
And I'm going, man. If you want to pay for all the daycares and all that stuff that goes into it, have at it. I'm happy to have kids. I love having a kid. It's fantastic. But dollars and cents are real things. And when you have to multiply these by 5, it doesn't quite work. Hester works his butt off here and at SiriusXM. And he got a pretty good start out of school for working his butt out that I didn't quite get with the National Football League salary. And that's fantastic for Team Hester, and I love that whole family. It's great. Just a little bit different situation is all I'm saying.
A little bit.
I'll tell you, y'all can vouch for this. I was sitting in this chair when my wife went in for that first ultrasound. And I was just sitting here going, please, please, please. Only be 1 heartbeat. Please, not a second heartbeat. We're looking for 2, and we cut it off right there. And that's what we've got. We got 1 heartbeat, so that's good.
Good stuff.
That probably sounds morbid. There's probably people driving around going, "You're a lunatic," but that's just real life. Okay, I don't. Dollars are real things.
Yeah, I know. I know my dad. Whenever, because I'm a twin brother. I have a twin brother. My dad found out that he was having twins. He fainted. So
yeah, I mean, look, my grandfather's a twin. My cousin on that side has twins. My mom's family has triplets. So, there was real concern. But we've passed that.
All right, last one here. What if Jaden Hill had not been injured essentially his entire LSU career? Does LSU win that Southern Miss series maybe?
The Southern Miss Regional?
Yeah. I don't know if one guy is going to change.
I mean, obviously you got deep into that regional with a chance to win it on the last day, but that was Jay's first year. I mean, Jaden was going to be draft eligible at that point anyway, so if he was healthy, he wouldn't have been around that year. So, no, that wouldn't have helped. He was really dynamic, and that's a great what could have been story. 1 with injuries, 2 with COVID. He just never really got to be a dude. The COVID year, he was coming out of the bullpen, and he was just unhittable. Over in that game against Texas in Minute Maid, he was just unhittable. So I don't think it would have changed LSU's outcome a ton, but it would have been nice to watch a little bit more of that. So that's it for What If Wednesday. We'll come back and listen to some LSU defensive players talk about Ole Miss. I don't think you're going to want to miss this sound. It's coming up next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Highland Insurance Group, HighlandIG.com is the website. If you're a business owner and you have no idea what EPL insurance is, listen up. If you're a business owner and you have no real idea what cyber insurance does, you need to listen up. Do you need D&O insurance? Do you know? What are your umbrella limits supposed to be? If you don't know what any of that is and you own a business, I think it's really time to take a look and call the Highland Insurance Group, because I understand that a lot of business owners don't want to concern themselves with insurance. It's not a fun conversation to have. It's expensive to pay for, and you don't see any returns unless something really, really bad happens. But in the case of something really, really bad happens, it's really important. I've seen that firsthand working in insurance for 7 or 8 years. I know what those renewal meetings look like. I know what they sound like. I also know what a claim situation feels like. The fact that insurance can be your saving grace in time of need. The Highland Insurance Group wants to be part of your team to make sure that nothing derails the success you're having as a business. So give Jonathan Carr and his team a call or check them out online at highlandig.com. Not only do they do property and casualty insurance, they will also handle your group and employee benefits. They're your one-stop shop right here in Baton Rouge, but really anywhere in South Louisiana or the state at large, they can help you out here at the Highland Insurance Group. It's highlandig.com online, highlandig.com.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
Closing up hour number 1 here, Wednesday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show. Got a chance to sit down with some LSU players yesterday. Greg Penn was there, Sai'vion Jones was there, Mason Taylor was there, Garrett Nussmeier was there, and I've got a story up on LouisianaSports.net right now, speaking basically for the defense and their attitude going into this game with Ole Miss. We all remember last year, and so I asked Greg Penn, who's one of my favorite interviews on this team early on in my time covering them day to day, when he thinks about last year's Ole Miss game, like, what does he think about?
What do you think about when you think about last year's Ole Miss game?
I don't think about it much. I'm gonna lie to you, but I just think about how we did. I mean, as a defense, we didn't do what we were supposed to do to help the offense win that game. So, I mean, I don't really think about that game much, honestly, but hopefully we can go out there and get a win this time. We trying to lock in, like, we know what happened last year, but last year's last year. But at the same time, it's still in the back of our minds for sure. So just going out there and executing every play is definitely something we want to do.
So this game has stuck with the defense. Greg Penn said they didn't think about it a ton, but then came back and said it is still in the back of our minds. Sai'vion Jones took a completely different approach here, and he used the word revenge 5 different times that I heard between the television media and the print media. And this was one of the questions we asked Sai'vion Jones about, the quote-unquote revenge factor in this game with Ole Miss.
Yeah, I definitely feel that way, especially I'm sure all the fans know that we out for revenge and, what happened to us last year, how they stormed the field and stuff like that. So I feel like not only just the players, but like the fans are excited to have that rematch.
And that's a strong word to use is revenge, but it's one that they used multiple times. And you could tell these guys remember that feeling last year. I mean, when you give up 705 yards and 7 touchdowns, I mean, it has to stick with you. And I think for LSU fans, it's probably a little terrifying because it's the same quarterback and the same head coach and maybe the same wide receiver, and it's the same system, and you have a lot of the same guys out there on defense that were there for the worst performance we've ever seen LSU put out on a football field. And that's reasonable to be terrified of that. The sense I got from LSU, and they're young and they're confident football players, and that's the way a lot of them carry themselves, was that they're excited to change the narrative there. And that's their challenge. We'll know at the end of this game whether or not they've gotten better or they haven't. And then we'll have a reasonable expectation for the rest of the season. But I don't know if this comes through in the audio, and we'll see. I'm going to play it for you, and you can be the judge. But it 100% came through in person that Greg Penn physically cannot wait to get out on the football field. I asked him if he could tell that they had a bye week and they felt a little bit fresher, and that Ole Miss was clearly coming off a game 2 weeks in a row that have been very, very physical. And this was his answer about how ready he is to get out there and play against Ole Miss.
Yeah, I mean, I feel great. I feel like I'm ready to go, man. I'm just ready to play, man. The stuff I want to say, I can't really say, but I'm just ready to play.
I think that came through. He was sitting up in his chair when he started to say that, and he was like, I can't say, and you feel like, and I'm speculating here, but that's the point of a radio show. I feel like he's saying, like, we're going to get these guys. And I have no idea, sitting right now, if LSU can do it. I don't know if they can cover them. I don't know if they can get to Jackson Dart and force him into some bad decisions. I don't know. I hope. I don't know. And Greg Penn doesn't either. But they've got a plan. They've been hearing about this for 2 weeks. They felt that pain last year in Oxford where they simply could not get a stop under any circumstance. And they want to be part of the group that fixes it. I don't think anybody that follows the program or on the outside believes this defense to be talented enough to go chase an SEC and national championship. If they do that, man, I will sit here and just be so glad I was dead wrong. But I don't feel like that's the case. But they can start moving things in the right direction. And you gave up 55 to these guys last year. That needs to be cut in half. Like that's what you have to do if you're going to start showing signs of improvement. And we'll see if they can do it. But it was an interesting energy with the defensive players yesterday. I mean, Greg Penn is always full of energy, and Sai'vion Jones was like, "Yeah, we're gonna get these guys. We're gonna get some revenge. Like we understand the assignment here." And that's really the most fascinating piece to this entire game. I feel like I've got a pretty good grasp on how well LSU is going to move the ball offensively. I think it'll be well. I think they're going to score a lot of points. I can't rule out Ole Miss scoring 48 on this secondary, and I can't rule out LSU in that environment with that stadium behind it making some big plays and coming up big against this Ole Miss offense. I can't rule either one of them out. There are a lot of times where with LSU over the years where you've known what it's going to look like. In the Les era, you knew they were going to run the ball. You knew they were going to play good defense. Did you know if they were going to win or lose? No, but you knew what it was going to look like. Last year, they were going to be in a shootout with everybody. It just is what you knew what it was going to look like, and maybe they had the ball last and won. Maybe they didn't. This one, I don't know. And I've got, I guess, 2 days to figure out what my pick is. But I can tell you these guys are confident in what they've been taught and confident in their abilities. We'll just have to see if they can make it pay off on Saturday night. We're going to step aside for SportsCenter, my power rankings in 30 minutes. Come back with us. Wednesday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show.